Hello everybody, it's Chip Walton. Welcome to Chop and Brew. In this episode, we're off to where the wild beers are. This is an event that started in 2008 as a bottle share amongst a small group of friends, and it was focused on sour, wild, farmhouse, mixed culture fermented ales. In the 10 years since, it's grown into a series of larger scale bottle shares and sour beer fests featuring pro breweries in not only the Twin Cities, but also Des Moines and New York. Last fall, Chop and Brew went to where the wild beers are in the Twin Cities. In this episode, we talk with the co-founders of the event and talk about why they started it and how it's evolved over the years. We talk with the pro brewers about the beer that they were pouring, and we ride shotgun with the cellar crew as they manage the madness of this top shelf bottle share. One quick note before we get started: if you like to see stories like this and want to keep Chop and Brew running even more wild, please support us at patreon.com/chopandbrew. And now let's go to where the wild beers are.
The event at its core is a giant bottle share, but the way that happens has evolved a lot since the start of the event. So it started as me and Jeff just wanted to have a reason to bust out all these beers that we had in our cellar to share with people who would also appreciate them. And we thought that there were probably a lot of people like us who had a ton of beers that they didn't want to just consume themselves, that they wanted to share with other people who would appreciate them. But it's evolved a lot as the sour segment has changed and grown in not just within craft beer, but just within the beer industry itself. And as the style of sours has changed too.
We thank you for the pro brewers that have come out today to pour for us.
Yep, cheers, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
In Minnesota this last year, in 2016, we started incorporating breweries because there are some really good domestic producers of American sours now. And in the Northeast, we have the luxury of a ton of incredible wild, sour, farmhouse ale producers. So we started incorporating them in a much more significant way in New York City in 2017. And so we wanted to start expanding that more and more. But the bottle share is really the core component, and we just think of the breweries as being participants in and of themselves. We just want to make sure that the breweries that are participating are really dedicated to the style so that we can continue to promote sour beer, wild beer, farmhouse ales as a core component of the craft beer industry and promote those styles.
It's really a celebration of the beer styles. When we started this, they were very uncommon, especially domestically, and it was a necessity. If you wanted to have the variety of beers at one event, you couldn't just throw a festival. You had to throw something that was incredibly different, which is really where it came from for us. And as far as like just incorporating the brewers, for me, it's giving them a platform to show off what they're doing. Yeah. And you know, some folks are you know, I may be more on the mixed culture side. My pedigree is more on the import Belgian side of sours. There's a lot of new producers that are also doing kettle sours, and a lot of people like that. So there's a whole new slew of consumers that are enjoying these styles. And so it's not only just the celebration and enjoyment of it, but it's also the education of, you know, there are many different types of sours, and, you know, even one beer like a Berliner Weiss can be produced in multiple ways. And this is really a good way for them to be able to try them at one event, and on a level playing field. I mean, if you could almost do this blind, it would be even better.
Yeah.
But it's already a complicated event. I don't want to try that. So.
And what's funny is a lot of these brewers get a little bit nervous, but they also want to puff out their chest to show how their beer stacks up against the traditional, like, classic Cantillon Goose, Drie-Fonteinen and Goose, Hansen's Goose, because those are the benchmarks for the style. And American producers aren't making gooses in the traditional way necessarily. However, they're all being lumped into this wild, sour style. So to have them next to each other, it's really a unique platform for brewers to show off their chops. It's fun. It's fun to see them react to that.
So we're pouring 3 beers today. We've got, we're calling it White 3. It's from our white wine barrel number 3 out of the 8 white wine barrels we have. It's a young golden sour base. So we wanted to show people what the base beer of our golden sour was prior to blending, prior to any fruit additions. It's kind of like a funky saison almost. A little fruitier. It's got a little bit of oak component to it, moderate tartness. Just a real refreshing beer. Then we've got Red 15, which has a lot more age on it, so that's coming out of a red wine barrel. It's our Flanders sour red base beer, and that guy's got a lot more oak component, a lot more Brett component. It's a little more tartness, very much in that like dried cranberry, dried fruit realm. And then the last is our raspberry sour red, which we released earlier this summer. Sold out of in the tap room, and we got one of the last kegs here using local raspberries grown in the Bemidji area. So real excited to share these beers with all the folks down here.
We got our Heliotropic with 1,800 pounds of mango. Yeah, there's 50 pounds of mango per barrel. The Heliotropic, the base beer, it's our saison that we dose with a bunch of Brett. It's phenomenal. The mango comes through on the nose really heavily. A little more subtle on the flavor. I think it's just a lovely balance. You can taste the mango, you can still taste that base beer, you can pick up on the Saison DuPont, you can pick it up on the Brett. We also have another Saison, Saison de la Pomme. So this is a beer that we aged a second time on, oh gosh, can't remember the exact weight, but a lot of apples. Milk and honey cider gets some of the best apples in the country. We took some of the kind of pomace from one of their pressings, aged the Saison on the apples, so it's kind of a crazy Saison cider hybrid mashup that's just lovely. A good beer for fall, for sure.
We have 2 beers here today that haven't come out yet in bottle, so we're pretty excited to pour those 2. One is Funcle'bison, which is a barrel fermented dark wheat beer. So the original Funcle'bison was actually the first sour beer that we ever made at Fair State. It was a kettle sour version that we made like a month after we opened. And so we wanted to resuscitate the name, and we tried barrel fermenting it this time. And it's been sitting in bottles for at least 9 months, and it finally is ready to go, so it's fun to pour that today. The other one is Time Debt, which is a whiskey barrel fermented dark sour. So we do an imperial stout in whiskey barrels every year, and I hate throwing barrels away. So we've worked really hard to try to build a dark sour stock recipe that we've been aging in whiskey barrels and fermenting in whiskey barrels for a couple of years now, and this is the first iteration of that to actually hit bottles. There's a lot of people in Minnesota making good sour beer, and I think you'll see most of them here today. It's awesome because a lot of times, people don't really know what to think, right? Even though people, I think, for the most part, know what sour beer is now, an event like this is great because you get to sample the breadth of what mixed culture things are. Not necessarily just sour bombs, not necessarily just kettle sours, but interesting beers that people are trying to go different directions with things. So we're really, really happy to be here.
A few things just logistically, you'll see about every other table, there'll be, you probably can't tell because it's at your knees, but there'll be numbers at them. Those are the pouring stations. I think we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Those will be the bottle share pouring stations. So when we start the bottle share, if you say your beer's coming up on station 1, it's going to be over there. If it is your bottle, do not wait in the line, just get up to the front, that's my bottle, and you get your first pour.
The core of this is the share, and it's getting quality stuff that necessarily isn't something you picked up on the shelf the day before. Mm-hmm. It's something that maybe you traveled to get, you brought back in a backpack, or you drove and waited in a line to get, and it's trying to have everybody do something like that. What you put into the event is what you get back. And if everybody is doing that same thing, the quality of the event just keeps going up and up and up. So it starts with beforehand, and it's registering your beers online. We try and reduce duplicates. We try and keep the quality high. We do allow some things that are maybe, a little less traditional, maybe a sweetened lambic or something that it's quite common. Just from an educational standpoint, there's a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. But by and large, we're looking for variety versus quantity.
What we're asking the participants to do is is really bring the stuff that they've gone above and beyond to get themselves, because that's what we bring ourselves. When we travel, we pick up bottles all the time on our own dime and make sure that we're kind of gathering an arsenal of really cool beers to share as well, because it's still a lot of fun for us. At the end of the day, it's still a very selfish event in that I just want to try a bunch of really cool beers. The value that we're asking the participants to contribute, it goes so far beyond that. That's the real challenge, is getting people to buy into this event in a way that they're sharing some of the most valued experiences and travels that they have had. So it's not just the $35 entrance fee. It's also the ticket to Belgium, or the ticket to California, or the ticket to Maine, and the fact that they had to mule one of these bottles back inside one of their checked bags, or fly it back on, like ship it back in a FedEx box and store it in a climate-controlled area, and then trust us to take that bottle that they paid $20 for or $25 for, and make sure that they get a pour of it and that it's treated well. And then on the flip side of that, make sure that other people are doing the same thing and contributing high quality, sought after, really cool beers to give a unique experience to not just that person, but to everybody. And by and large, that's exactly what happens.
Yep.
It's incredible that you can get this many people in lockstep toward the same goal and create an experience like that in New York, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, in Des Moines, and then maybe other towns too.
Essentially, we in the cellar here, we do all the stuff back here, we do all the organizing, we do all the pulling of beers, so then when a runner comes up and says table 5 needs beers, whatever, we can go, we pull all of them out and get them lined up. The runners will come pull the beers from our little pulling area. We have a little taped off area over here. So we'll set the beers up so that essentially if they come up and say we need beers for tables 2 and 3, they go and run off and do whatever. We get that stage, so they just come up, take their beers, and bring them to their respective tables. All the beers come in, and we kind of try to get them sorted kind of by style. We, for a while, did like absolute style, like sour red, sour brown, lambic, fruit lambic, this, that, American, and non-American. Yeah, so now we just kind of lump a lot of stuff together. So sour browns, sour reds are all in one. Saisons, whether they're barrel fermented or they're funky or whatever, we all put all Saisons together. Fruits are huge, so we always just keep whatever it is. It's just a fruit beer. Doesn't matter if it's from Belgium, America, whatever. So we just try to keep everything all kind of combined so that when they go out, we can kind of go take one from each bin and then get... So like every table gets a little bit of everything. They get a fruit beer, they get a lambic, they get a saison, they get a whatever. We always have one bin that's like, that has no real style. It's just a mix of everything. And people are actually stepping up their game and bringing stuff that they weren't normally bringing to begin with. They're actually bringing their Cantillons or their Dre Fontaines and this stuff that like, well, maybe I'll just keep this at home and I'll bring the Monk's Cafe and then I can try all this really fancy stuff without having to give up my fancy bottles. So I think there's a lot of people that are actually stepping up their game and bringing a lot of good stuff, especially from travels of people going around the world and bringing stuff back. They're actually starting to bring that stuff back here and sharing it with people.
It was a small event to start. It was at the back of Stub and Herbs.
Stub and Herbs, yeah.
On the porch in the back, which probably would fit like maybe 70 people if you wedge them in.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I
think
had like 40 people show up to that
40.
thing?
Yeah, and some incredible beers that I wish I wouldn't have served.
Oh my gosh, we had Cantillon. We had a keg of Cantillon Iris. We had Cantillon Lyric. We had like some of the
Isabella
stuff
Proximus. Yeah. Some crazy beers that right now I'm very happy to have shared those with those amazing people. Yep. Some of which still come to our event today. On the flip side, those bottles were insane. So, yeah. I'd say the nerd factor was super high right in the beginning. And it's ramping down a bit, especially in Minnesota and especially in Des Moines and somewhat in New York. But it's gone down. There's still a core group, and they're really good people and they're really generous people that come. But it's a much more balanced event now, which is good, I think overall, because allows folks to not feel quite as intimidated about what they're bringing. That's always been a problem. Like, oh, I'm a little bit like, I don't have anything good. I'm like, you do, or we don't have this beer. You know what? This is a really classic beer and no one's bringing it.
Right.
Bring that beer.
Well, very often people think that just because it's not something they trade for or that they have to travel to Belgium to get, that it's not good enough to bring to the event, and that's not true at all. There's a lot of great stuff that's off the shelf that's great to bring. Just because something's not rare doesn't mean it's not exceptional. You know what? I can't remember the last time someone registered an Orval.
No, Orval I haven't seen in years.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yep.
There's a lot of question marks as to what's going to happen in the coming years with the sour segment expanding to producers who are trying sours for the first time and introducing people to sours in non-traditional ways. So it'll be really interesting to see how things happen in 2018, 2019, and how our event can promote the highest quality and bring more people into the segment.
Shop for shop, brew for brew.
It's on camera.
Turn it off, Chip. Turn it off. Thank you. You're gonna blur my face, right?
So typically,
so
that's
talk about
right.
how kind of,
Then this side's better, right? Okay. They know what's theirs. We've not had people try and fake out the whole system. It's a little bit of an honor system. This is airing after the event, so you guys can't game it.
Chop for chop, brew for brew. What the f is happening? Chop for chop,
All right,
brew for brew.
Try it
Chop
again.
for chop, brew for brew.
Oh, okay. I thought I was just.
One,
So, what you want? I'm drinking beer. Don't be zooming in on me. I see you. Yeah.
Can you see it zooming?
Yeah.
Does
I can see that.
I've never been on that.
That's out. No, is that in? That was in.
Oh, it does. Nice.
Look at this camera.
I think it's this one. Give that one a shot. Worcestershire? I mean, it's got like A1 steak sauce and Worcestershire. It's insane.